So I wanted to share with you an experience that I had while I was in Vermont visiting my sister. One of the things that I treasure about living here at the Abbey is through Venerable's example and her strong suggestions is that the community engages in a lot of social outreach. There's a lot of things that really call our hearts, and it gives us an opportunity to practice and grow our bodhicitta. So over the years, the Abbey, to the best that we can, we participated in things like prison outreach and really addressing the gun control issue, helping and supporting at-risk teens, civil rights issues. And two of my favorite that we do quite a bit is anything that has to do with the environment. I'm all over it, sort of like Venerable Jampa. And anything that has to do with interfaith dialogue. There's just something about those two things that just excite me and inspire me. I mean, I love hanging out with the kids, and I really think gun control is huge, important thing to always share our voices about how we think about those things. But the interfaith and the environment really call my heart. And what's great is that the community sort of splits up their favorite things that they'd like to engage in. So we cover a lot of territory and really take care of putting our hearts and our actions out there where we think they might have some benefit. So before I went to Vermont, I received, we went to visit the Carmelite sisters, Venerable Tarp and I, Sister Nancy gave me an address of a Catholic sister in Greensboro, Vermont, which is way the heck up there. I mean, we're out there, but Greensboro, Vermont is really out there in the most glorious country of the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. And Sister Nancy said, well, Semke, if you're going to Vermont, if you get a chance, I'm going to give you Sister Gail's address and phone number. If you get a chance, she's very much into the environment. The monastery is considered to be sort of an earth stewardship monastery for the world, and it would be lovely to meet her. So I get to Vermont, and I'm hanging out with my family, having a lovely time, and my brother's there, and I say, "You guys want to go up and visit Sister Gail?" We were all kind of ex-Catholics. Well, Bry's sort of a Catholic, but anyway. But I said, "You want to go?" We always have these kind of Nesbit adventures when we get together. And it's been like 30 years, so we thought it was time for an adventure. So I called Sister Gail, and sure enough, even though it's an extremely busy time of the year at the monastery with sacred music and Advent and things like that, she said, "I'd love to meet you." So we go out on Monday, the day before I come back here, and it's about a 2-hour drive. And of course, we're having the snowstorm decides to start about halfway there. So by the time we pull into the driveway way up on the top of this mountain, there's about 8 inches of snow on the ground. Luckily, we have a nice little car that's got all-wheel drive, and Brian's driving, so that took care of it. But the monastery was co-founded. Well, first of all, Sister Gail, this incredible, joyful, energetic, lovely nun, lives there with 2 other sisters and a lay woman. It was founded in 2003, the same year that the Abbey was founded. And they're co-founders with Father Thomas Berry, who died in 2009, and they are in the Passionist, the Catholic Passionist order, which was founded by Saint Paul of the Cross of Italy, that really serves not only the suffering of the world, manifesting Christ's not only compassion but passion for the care and well-being of not only the suffering of the world but also the planet on which we live. So there's kind of this stewardship of all beings, the community and the earth itself. So Father Thomas Berry became quite a visionary as far as embodying this call from the Passionist order. And Sister Gail, who ordained in the Passionist order quite early in her life. I mean, she doesn't look much older than 50 or something, and she ordained in 1982. And she met him shortly afterwards. So she must have been in her early 20s. So he became her spiritual mentor, along with Sister Bernadette, who's also a co-founder. And her main vocation of joining the order, and this was on the website, was to fully give herself to Christ's love and his energy to transform the world, connecting with others whose deep wish is to do the same. So she travels around the world with this beautiful presence that kind of wants to share this divine relationship with the earth that Jesus sort of embodied when he was here in the world, and that this order kind of embodies as well. So she does these retreats, programs all over the world, and tried to share this great love of the earth and how to walk gently and harmlessly in the world. I didn't get much time to speak with her because we ended up showing up in the middle of this snowstorm, which was like toward the late end of the afternoon. But what I did take away was this deep, fervent commitment to practice as Father Thomas Berry had really taught them and guided them and actually modeled for them over the years that they knew him. And so what I wanted to share today were some of the beautiful quotes that he has written. He wrote a beautiful book called The Universe Story that evidently sort of articulates this vision of how the earth community can really walk gently and have a deep relationship with the earth, who's kind of a sacred reality for those in this particular Catholic tradition. So I wanted to share some of the quotes to give you an idea of what Sister Gail and the rest of the sisters there are sort of trying to exemplify with a simple life and through their practice. It's a beautiful space, just lovely space. So first of all, it is called the first Ecozoic monastery in the world. And this was a term, Ecozoic era, that was coined by Thomas Berry and in a conversation with his co-author Brian Swim, a book that they wrote, this Universe Story, which was used to describe this geologic era they say that the earth is entering into. So we've got these huge, the Paleolithic, the whatever they are, these 65,000 year cycles of earth, and that Thomas Berry believes that from his deep personal relationship with the divine and his understanding of the earth, he calls himself a geologian, is that humans live in a mutually enhancing relationship with the earth and the earth community. And that this time, this era that we're going into is to serve as then the practice is to serve as a conduit for reintroducing humans to their connectedness to everything in the sacred universe. Because we've gotten so disconnected with the Industrial Revolution, with everything that's going on. We can just see things just kind of, we're like poisoning our little earth ship here, So he was very strongly an advocate to sort of using spiritual practice to embody and to live and to articulate this relationship that we can have with the earth. And that in 2005, on the day that the monastery was dedicated, he called the founding of that monastery a special moment of the divine's approval of a time when we have lost our sense of the sacredness of the earth. So I want to share some of these, and they're pretty easy to transfer into Dharma language. There are really common values in some of these quotes that he has. But it really touched me. Plus, I think my heart connection to the earth and the fact that meeting this community that has that similar connection as we do here at the Abbey as well. So here are some of his quotes. We live our lives within the divine heart as it draws the universe towards deeper expressions of relationality, wholeness, unity, and love. So they really see the earth as a manifestation of the Christ's divine heart. The planet Earth is a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. If we don't understand that, nothing will work. So it's this whole idea of how we objectify each other, to use each other, to use the earth as we see fit, to use the each other and the world as we objectify them, and then we can basically do whatever we want. And that he says we've got to see that we're not a collection of objects, but we're living, breathing things. And that if we don't figure that out, we can just basically close the door. The natural world is the larger sacred community to which we belong. To be alienated from this community is to become destitute in all that makes us human. To damage this community is to diminish our own existence. Which once again, we're already starting to see as we take less and less care of the earth. Even our bodies are starting to recoil. We're starting to have more autoimmune diseases. We're starting to have more problems with our lungs, our hearts, our bodies, our arthritis. Our bodies are just responding to the fact that we're starting to poison this beautiful planet. We are only talking to ourselves. We are not talking to the rivers. We are not listening to the wind and the stars. We have broken that great conversation. By breaking that conversation, we have shattered the universe. All the disasters that are happening now are the consequence of that spiritual autism. So we've just stopped speaking and listening to what the earth has to offer, our interconnectedness, our interdependence, not only to the planet itself, but to all the living beings that are the community that we share with it. The human venture depends absolutely on this quality of awe and reverence and joy in the earth, and all the lives that grow upon it. As soon as we isolate ourselves from these currents of life, and from the profound mood that they engender within us, then our basic life is diminished. None of our machine-made products, none of our computer-based achievements can evoke that total commitment to life. That's a pretty amazing statement. Our fulfillment is not in our isolated human grandeur, but in our intimacy with the larger earth community, for this is also the larger dimension of our being. You know, we consider this whole dependent horizon. We've been talking about all the earth elements, the constituents that compose the self, and what these pieces that break down to just the elements that everything on this planet is composed of. If the earth does grow inhospitable towards human presence, it is primarily because we have lost our sense of courtesy toward the earth and its inhabitants. The environmental crisis is fundamentally a spiritual crisis. So this is kind of these are sort of the fundamental foundation of this spiritual tradition that the Green Mountain Monastery is trying to articulate, trying to practice, trying to embody. And Sister Gail, who's been in this tradition for over 30 years, has spent her life, she does liturgical dancing, she just shares herself in wanting to manifest what she understands this divine relationship is about. And for me, I believe personally that all of us as human beings have this ability to connect and to live gently on the earth. I mean, I think we're trying to do this at the Abbey all the time. But for those of us who have made our life commitment of non-harm in any spiritual tradition, whether it's Catholic, Christian, Hindu, Judaism, Sikh, if we've made our whole life's commitment to non-harm and to give up the pleasures and comforts and distractions of this life, I think that our internal journeys of complete fulfillment are a really big piece of this environmental stewardship. I really feel that we've committed very specifically to guarding our senses, to sort of refraining and restraining this compulsive kind of acquisition mind that the earth is really starting to struggle with. And that we have the time, we have the motivation, we have the commitment, the practice across traditions. And I think as a Sangha, as a monastic tradition, I think we have a very particular responsibility to all beings, that this altruism, in whatever form it manifests, really is here to sort of support this, if indeed whatever Father Thomas is saying about this Ecozoic era. I'm not sure I have not read the book, The Universe Story, but I can kind of resonate that there's this interdependence, and how we're doing pretty much says how the earth is doing. And the more that we harm each other, the more the earth is harmed, and by result, the more harm will come back at us because she doesn't know what else to do with us. So, you know, when I think of the Buddha and I think of that beautiful earth-touching gesture that when Mara challenged him to say, who's going to affirm and confirm that you have become awakened? And he put his hand down. He said, the earth will be my witness. That's where I resonate with this whole thing about the divine manifestation, you know, the earth goddess or whoever we perceive from the Buddhist worldview, that there is something very important about this beautiful ship that we're on in this life. And so I am really delighted to have met more of our human family that have that same commitment, because right now I need to be reassured, I need to be inspired as I'm looking at what's going on in this country and the possibility of things just being taken down and dismantled and just harmed. it really kind of inspired me to be in Sister Gail's presence and to be in this lovely space that is really embodying, and to know that there are hundreds of thousands, millions of these little communities of caring humanity that are really putting a very strong effort to making sure that this planet lasts for as long as she can, changing moment by moment, and that those beings that inhabit her earth will be able to always have the resources, always have the ability to receive her gift. And so I'm really, was really inspired to meet Sister Gail, and hoping that I've kind of recommitted my own personal journey, and here as a member of this community, and then to be more out there with my understanding of how this all relates to our well-being, short-term and long-term. Anyway, it was a lovely visit. Lovely.